Hey, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. And we're just like that. We are down to two. National championship is will be the number 10 seed Miami Hurricanes versus the number 1 seed Indiana Hoosiers. So, yeah. Um, After a great night last night, wish I wouldn't have had to work this morning because I would have been able to do a live video last night and it would have made tonight's video a lot better. Because after tonight, I could have went live. What, 2 hours ago? This thing was over and it was over early. But anyhow, let's go give the winning team the spoils. Obviously, first, an absolute dominating performance. Something that has to start getting talked about is if they demolish Miami next week, is it time to start talking about how this is one of the best teams in college football? This was brought up to me earlier this evening by a good friend of mine, a friend guest of the show, um, Ian Harold, and I believe it's to be accurate. Um, what I will say is they are very opportunistic. They take advantage of every single mistake that is given to them. They don't dilly dally around. They don't play around with their food. They literally punch you in the mouth as soon as the first whistle blows. And that is a mentality set by their head coach, Kurt Signetti. The man is an absolute animal. Um, there's attention to detail, and then there's what he is. Like he's in a completely different stratosphere. Um, in the same conversation that I was having with Ian that I brought up a little bit ago, I said, at what point, how's this man not being talked about for an NFL job? At this point, if I'm an NFL GM, I'm making the phone call and I'm making him say no. And I'm offering him money that Indiana can't give him. I'm not. I don't care if any of Indiana's donors. I don't care. I don't care. I'm an NFL franchise. I'm the top of the heap, and I'm going to give you and I'm going to offer you a contract that Indiana just can't match. Mark Cuban, you could bring all your millions all you want. You're not the NFL. So, but like I said, to the victors go the spoils. It's by game wise, it's almost the complete opposite. By yardage wise, this is why stats just can't be the only thing you ever go on. Because last night, Miami completely dominated the stat sheet, and that game was nip and tuck the entire night. Four lead changes with 5 minutes to go, from 5 minutes to go until the end of the game. This is turning out to be very close in yardage because Indiana, quite frankly, just hasn't cared in the second half. All the damage was done in the first half. Um, there was a stat earlier in the first half. Oregon had as many first downs as they had rushing yards, 9. They have 20 now with 22 seconds left to go in the game. Um, so I mean, it's why, again, like I said, like stats just, you can make the stats sing however you want them to make them sing. Like 20 first downs for Indiana, 20 first downs, I mean, for Oregon, 18 for Indiana, 8 of 13 on third down for Oregon, 11 of 14 for Indiana, 377 total yards to 363. Oregon over Indiana, passing 284 to 177, 23 of 39 for 284. Actually, 23 of 38 for 284, one touchdown, one huge interception. It was returned for a pick six. Um, the haters are going to get on their YouTubes and they're going to get on their everything, and they're going to try to minimize this performance by Indiana, saying, well, if Oregon doesn't give them 28 points, this is a close ball game. Well, who's forcing these turnovers? Like, literally, the first play of the game was a pick six. That's studying, that's understanding what your opponent's going to do, that's understanding how Oregon, reading tendencies and seeing how a team starts the game, and understanding that all the talk was Oregon's going to try to come out and make Dante Moore as comfortable as possible. So you know how they're going to do that. Short, quick passes. They had to get the ball out of his hand because he got sacked a bunch in the last game. There was also a stat earlier this evening that I don't know what the final sack numbers were, but at one point, Oregon had been sacked 19 times in the entire season, and Indiana owned 9 of them. And that was in 6 quarters against Oregon. It's absolute, completely utter domination by Indiana against Oregon. And this is the second year in a row where Oregon has faced a rematch from the Big Ten in the college football playoff. And quite frankly, they've just literally gotten their doors blown off. We have some chats here. Let's see what we got going on. If you're the Raiders, why wouldn't you reach out? Mendoza is their guy. Try and pair the future quarterback of the franchise with the coach that's gotten the most out of him. Bingo. Ding, 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 ding. That was from Ian Harold. Justin Smith chimes in. Crazy. I keep trying to not believe in Indiana, but they keep making believers out of me. Yeah, exactly. That's par for the course right now about from everybody. And then you wake up and you look up in the middle, like very early in the second quarter, and it's already 28-7, and you're like, what did I just watch? I mean, see, Oregon still finished with so the game game's over, 56-22. Indiana is your victory. Is your victor? I'm sorry. They move on to face last night's winner, Miami. Oregon finishes with 93 rushing yards. Indiana finished with 186. There's your ball game right there. 39 attempts for 186 yards, 4.8 per rush. Penalties, I really don't care. Both of them had 5. Oregon had 43. Indiana had 23. Jeremy IU laid the smack down. Yeah, go Hoosiers. Yep, exactly. I'm going to get to it in a minute. I'll do my early prediction, my early breakdown of the national championship. I'll get to that minute after the game last night. But just kind of finishing up with Indiana, then I'm going to go to Oregon here in a minute. Problem there, Jeremy, is Miami has a tendency. If Miami plays the game they played again last night against Ole Miss, Indiana will do exactly to Miami what they did to Oregon tonight. Indiana isn't going to make the mistakes Ole Miss made. Miami did everything humanly possible to allow Ole Miss to win that ball game last night, and Ole Miss just didn't want to take advantage of it until too late. But like I said, I'll break that game down here in a minute. Indiana, there's just no weaknesses, and like they were talking about it in the broadcast in the third quarter. Maybe it was late second quarter when they were running the ball and when they were doing the RPO, but all they were doing was handing the ball off. But they're gaining 4 to 5 yards on the run, but it was an RPO. And when they run the ball like that, and you're not taking the run away, it's just like the triple option. If you don't take the dive away, then everything else they can do. Basically, at that point, the offense can do whatever they want. Your first priority is to take the dive away facing a triple option. When facing Indiana, you better stop the running game. If you don't stop the running game, then you have no shot. The problem in this game for Oregon was they gave them 7 points right off the rip. And then they couldn't get off the field because Mendoza was so accurate. And if Mendoza is going to continue playing how Mendoza's played the first 2 games, against, meaning Alabama and tonight against Oregon, if he keeps throwing like this, I don't care what Miami does to him, because you're not going to have good enough coverage on the back end. Oregon's guys were on the wide receivers early on. The balls are just getting put in the perfect spot. Like the touchdown pass to Decker, he actually missed the catch initially. Go back and watch it again. It goes through his hands. It bounced off his mask into his hands. He put the pass on his mask. It's unbelievable what Indiana and Mendoza and this entire team is doing. But all the talk is about offensively. Defensively, they get after you. They just do. Defense, they just get flat out get after it. And it's really fun to watch defensively because they pass twists off, they stunt, they pick, they do everything that you're taught from elementary ball moving up into junior high school, and they just do it at such an exceptional level that it's so fun to watch as a football mind that it's unreal to me. But moving on to Oregon, some serious conversations need to be had in that organization with that program. And like I said earlier, this is 2 years in a row in a rematch in the college football playoff against a conference opponent you've gotten absolutely blown off the field. Non-competitive, ugly, just flat out demolished, demoralized on the field. Now Dan Lanning's losing his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator, so he's going to have to replace them too. But I think some serious operational things need to be looked at from Oregon. Why? Like, when you face the team the second time, you're actually supposed to be the one in the advantage. It's unreal to me. And then it's a bigger issue with me with Oregon too, because this goes back. There's really only one time on the big stage Oregon has actually been competitive. If you truly, honestly think about it. Like I saw a tweet earlier tonight. Oregon has like 8 million uniform combinations, including this year's. But they have nothing to show for it. But they were using the Oregon O as the 0. So they have a Pac-12 title and they have a Big Ten title. And they can say they hung with Auburn one time. Well, congratulations. You got your doors blown off in 2015 by Ohio State. You got your doors blown off last year by Ohio State. You got your doors blown off by Indiana this year. You got beat at home by Indiana earlier in the year. Whenever they're a glorified, bigger version, smaller, softer version of Ohio State. You punch them in the mouth and they never respond. And it's just something needs to. I don't know what it is either. I don't know if it's like they're not going to get rid of Dan Lanning, but like some serious questions need to be asked. There's a ton of money flowing through that Oregon football program, and they have nothing to show for that investment. Nothing. Yeah, Mendoza going back home. Very true. Very, very true. Got quacked. Yeah, for sure. Definitely, Ian. It's if I'm Phil Knight, I have some serious questions. I just do. And if I'm a donor of the Oregon's football program, I have some serious questions. I guess maybe they get a pass right now because they're bringing in a new OC and they're bringing in a new DC. So maybe that gives them some maybe that gives them a year of leeway. I know they're active in the portal again. They'll be even more active in the portal starting probably tomorrow, now that they're out of the playoff. Going to be interesting to see who enters the portal for Oregon, especially with the OC and the DC leaving. That's going to be very interesting. I think that's why some of these teams you haven't seen much action from in the portal is because they were waiting to see which teams lose in the CFP here. So I mean there's really not much more to say about this game. I'm going to move back to tomorrow night so I can talk about the actual final moving forward, looking forward in advance before I actually sit there and look at it, just as a kind of like a brief preview type of thing. But yeah, Indiana moves on and they're impressive, man. They're very impressive. People don't want to. I think people are finally starting to come around to it. I was starting to get hip to it. If you paid attention, this is Shaw's 10 Talk. Thank you for joining again. For all those new that are in here tonight. Throughout the year, I've been doing Big Ten Talk, breaking down the games weekly and doing preview for the next week's games. And I was on Indiana early. I just was. Like they were playing, they were doing things completely different. And it's stayed that way. It just has. And now here I am finally able to get to the box score from last night. Joys of they win by 14 at least. I'll get to that one in a minute. So you think Miami's going to win by 14? Why? That's my question to you. Why? Why, Stephen David? Why? Not saying you're wrong. I'm not. But I have some early thought. I have some thoughts about it. I do. Miami's played one clean game this year, and it was against Ohio State. But what if they play that clean game again? What if Miami plays that clean game again? So back to last night. Number 10 Miami wins 31-27 in another fourth quarter thriller against number 6 Ole Miss, 31-27. Tyson Chambliss did his best to bring back Ole Miss, actually gave them the lead with 3 minutes to go. And Carson Beck actually did something I didn't think he was going to be able to do. Maybe I won't talk about this game a lot because apparently you guys want to talk about the national championship. Larry Wright comes in and joins in. Indiana will do the same thing to Miami. They are balanced on both sides of the ball. And Miami's not. You all can sleep on Miami at your peril. Miami's a very darn good ball club, and they are very good defensively. If Miami does not turn the ball over like Oregon did tonight, tell me how Indiana pulls away from Miami. Or is it a game like last night's game? And if we get into that type of game, just because I haven't seen it, I don't know if Indiana can win a shootout. I don't know. I don't know that. I just saw Miami do it last night. I'm not going to tell you who I think is going to win or lose because I really don't have an opinion on that right now. Little early, haven't looked at everything. I say right now, if you go Carson Beck to Mendoza, Mendoza definitely has the advantage. If you go O-line to O-line, I think it's a tie. If you go D-line to D-line, because Indiana has those injuries on the D-line, I give the advantage to Indiana. Linebackers to linebackers, I think that's a push. Secondary to secondary, I give it to Miami. Special teams, I give it to Miami. Coaching, I give it to Cignetti. That's what I'm saying. I think this game is going to be closer than what a lot of people think it's going to be. Back to Steven again. They have to play mistake-free football to have a good game. Miami has been good, but they make mistakes. What if Miami forces Indiana to make mistakes, like Penn State? Why was the Penn State game close? Okay. Oregon wasn't able to force them into it. Alabama wasn't able to force them into it. But what if I told you Miami was the best team that they faced? They didn't blow Ohio State off the field. And Miami out physicaled Ohio State. Not disagreeing with you. Which quarterback do you think protects the ball? Um, you're all acting like the Penn State game didn't happen. That's that's what I'm saying, man. Like, which quarterback do you think protects the ball? Did he protect the ball in the Penn State game? I mean, that was over 2 months ago. I understand that, and Mendoza's playing some football right now that is out of this world. But I think Carson Beck's going to get a big boost off of what happened with that last drive last night. I do think that too. But you're all not wrong either. Like Miami is going to have to. Miami's going to have to protect the football. Their two losses are identical. They had a lot of penalties. They turned the ball over, and it's a lot of self-inflicted wounds. What was last night? A lot of turnovers, a lot of self-inflicted wounds, but they were able to come back and win it despite it. Saban said it in the pregame, and he talked about it even at halftime. The resiliency the Hurricanes showed was just they had every reason to fold. And if you would have watched my pregame video yesterday, I laid the scenario out. I did. I called it the trap door. Miami is dominating literally in every aspect of the football game except on the scoreboard. And then all of a sudden you look up and you go, well, Ole Miss is right there. They are literally one score away from making this an entire ball game that Miami doesn't want to get involved in. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But Miami beat the quarterback that I thought was the wild card of the entire college football playoff. He was the one guy that I thought could completely change the entire game, and he almost did it again. He gave Ole Miss the lead. The defense just couldn't get to stop. Back to Ian. Despite Miami's win last night, they should have had about 284 interceptions. If something similar happens, they can't give Mendoza second chances. If the turnovers are there, you have to take them. Exactly. It happened tonight. Mendoza put the ball on the ground twice. Indiana got the recovery both times. Oregon put the ball on the ground twice. Indiana got the recovery. That's the difference. That was basically the difference in the ball game right there. And Steven writes in again, but they did what they needed to do by the time clock hit 0. Exactly. Agreed. That's why I think this game actually is a very good matchup, because there's so many scenarios and there's so many ways that this game could go. I could see Miami. I mean, it's not likely. It's not. I wouldn't say it's high on the totem pole, but I could see Miami blowing out Indiana. Mendoza goes out there. Like, again, none of these Indiana players have ever been in this situation. Miami hasn't been in this situation either, but they've been in more big games than what Indiana has. And Carson Beck, I mean, played for Georgia. So some of the defensive guys were transfers up from other programs and stuff like that. And the offensive line guys, they played. Some of those guys played in college football playoff games. So I don't want to sit here and just completely dismiss the fact that Miami is a very good ball club. But maybe Indiana is from another planet. Maybe they are. Are they better than 2022 Georgia? Are they better than 2019 LSU? Are they better than 2023 Michigan? Are they like 2015 Ohio State, 01 Miami, 97 Nebraska, 97 Michigan, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But they have to win in order to have these conversations, and that's going to be the interesting thing, especially coming on the 19th. That's what's going to make this fun. Looking forward to and back to Ian again. Looking forward to Indiana's offensive line versus Miami's defensive line. Exactly. Miami has 2 weeks to get Jared. The 3 tech. They have 2 weeks to get that ankle healed. Hopefully that can get healed, so he's a bigger force up the middle. And it's going to be interesting to see Miami versus a defensive line that is comparable to that offensive line, just as physical as what they are. And that can create some problems because, again, the only physical, more physical off defensive line that Indiana faced, one could argue Penn State and one could argue Ohio State, and they struggled against both of those defenses. So that's just very interesting to me. Like, all right, let me do this. Let me go over here. Let me bring up the final. And let me look and see if the line has been released. I saw a bunch of different numbers. I know Messidor came back in. Have you heard if it's anything more serious? It looked ugly when it happened. Nothing's been released about Messidor yet, but if I have anything to guess, it's probably a separated shoulder or it's a collarbone. And to me, wow. Sorry, I just read the line. Holy, I didn't think it was going to be like that. But anyway, going back to Messidor, it's either clavicle or it's shoulder, and it's either AC joint or it's clavicle. The hope there is that the clavicle's not broke, and the hope would be also that the AC joint wouldn't be separated. Either one of those two happen, I don't see how Messidor plays. I mean, obviously he's going to give it a shot, but that's going to be interesting. So I saw early on when it looked like it was going to be Miami versus Indiana. Saw very early on that the line would be set at four. Then I saw later on that it would be 5.5. Then I saw it move up to 6. Well, I just clicked on it and I looked at it. Miami's favored by 7.5, and the over/under is 48.5. So right now, Vegas agrees with all of you guys, and they disagree completely with me. Right now, if I had to put a bet into that right now, I'd be Miami plus the 7.5. I just would. Indiana may win the game, but I don't think they're going to cover the 7.5. Nope, no way, no how. Well, not no how, but I shouldn't say it like that. But let's see, Larry Reich back in. No, Indiana's favored by 7.5. Miami is a great ball team, but Indiana, I believe, is playing at a very high level right now. I agree, but Miami's coming off that like a win last night. Final drive, 3 minutes and 5 seconds to go. You get the ball back, and you drive down, and the quarterback who's done nothing but eat it all year long. He's ate all the talk in his ear all year long. Talk. Can't win the big game. Can't make the big throw. Has a noodle arm. Yada yada yada. Runs it in. Runs it in for the game-winning touchdown. And Miami was already running on a high as it was, and that's just going to give them more. Another key factor for Miami against Indiana is Tony. Indiana hasn't faced a guy like him. They should have. Ohio State didn't use him. That's the one thing about Miami. They're going to give Tony the football. Sometimes too much. Sometimes they force it to him. But Tony's going to get the football. Unlike Jeremiah Smith. And who's 25 years old? Tony? You might want to go check that again. You might want to go check that. Tony is 18. Can IU stop the damn bubble screen? Exactly. Ian, you're starting to pick up on it. You're starting to get there. You're starting to get there. Tony should be in high school. Yes, he should. That's a heck of a player, but he was 11 when Beck was a freshman at Ohio State, I believe, is where he started. At OSU, I believe, is where he started. Beck did not start at Ohio State. He started at Georgia. Beck, yeah, he's 25. Yeah. 24, 25. Well, welcome to today's college football. If he was listening to a local radio show today, you would have heard that radio host talking about how there's nothing wrong with college football. It's as good as it's ever been, quote unquote. But that's neither here nor there. But Indiana hasn't faced a cat like Tony. Indiana can. Indiana. That's going to be the interesting thing. So you have such a structured defense that stays within itself and plays to the strengths of the defense. That what does getting outflanked and outspeed? What does the speed do to that structured defense? That's going to be the cat and mouse game in this game. Because quite frankly, I don't really think either running attack is going to really take hold. If Indiana wins the game, it's because Indiana's running attack took hold late third quarter, fourth quarter. If Miami wins the game, it's because their speed dictated the ball game. I think Miami. I think Miami's going to have to play a little bit more tempo this game. They don't want to let Indiana get set. Where Oregon had advantage tonight, and there wasn't many, and it didn't happen often, but where Oregon did have some advantages tonight was when they went quick tempo and they caught Indiana with their knickers down and they weren't ready to go. The interesting thing, I don't know if you all saw it, but I definitely saw it a couple times, especially in the first half, when Indiana actually was forced to actually drive the football field and they weren't given the ball inside the 15-yard line. Indiana actually started doing tempo tonight. And there was a lot more read option, and Mendoza was actually running the ball a lot more tonight with designed quarterback runs tonight. Yes, they were read options, but I think those were designed keeps. I do. There was a couple of them that I thought were questionable whether he should have handed it off or not, but he kept it, and some of those worked out. And then you saw where he had to improvise, and he darn near when the one that he spun and fumbled the ball, but they wound up getting it back. He darn near split those safeties, and so he's sneaky quick. Sends them into shambles. Who are you talking about, Steven? So I don't know. I think this could be one of the better finals. I really do. So I already talked about the line. That hasn't been released yet. Just stinks. We have to wait 10 days. That's what stinks. Wish the game was next weekend. Talking about Miami's run game and what it does to IU's yeah, I mean, that's what I was talking about. I think both defenses stifle the run game early on because there's going to be so much focus on it. And I think it's going to be what quarterback stays away from the early mistake, obviously, just like every other football game, but it's really going to be magnified in this ball game. Mistakes are just going to haunt you, especially if you throw early interceptions, like early in the first quarter, moving on to the second. And the coaches are going to have to be on their game too. Like, are we going for fourth downs? Are we managing the clock properly? And I'm sorry if it gets into that type of game, um, if it gets into that type of game, I'm telling you, the advantage definitely goes to Indiana. Um, do you think Beck can maintain the durability like Mendoza? That's a valid question. He's been more injured than what Mendoza has. Mendoza took some shots tonight, especially when he was trying to run the ball. He took more shots tonight. I'll tell you this: he doesn't want to get hit by that young buck for Ohio State again. I can tell you that. That he didn't feel very good after that shoulder shot first play of the game in the Big Ten championship. But in his defense, he hasn't been hit like that since either. Let's see here. Ian, I thought it would be my Northwestern Wildcats. Yeah, definitely. Indiana, Miami from Ian, just like we all predicted back in August. Exactly. Something I saw right at kickoff, it made me want to puke. Indiana was plus 7,000 to win the national championship at the beginning of the season. For you bettors out there, like myself, like that one I kick myself in the teeth for that one. Plus 7,000. Woo! But anyhow, um, the over under 48 and a half. That's that's intriguing to me. Like there's any turnovers at all in that ball game, it's going to go over 48 and a half easily. Um, but I'm still on that Beck. Can Beck maintain the durability? It's a valid question because Indiana's going to hit him. That's for sure. Indiana will definitely get their shots in. So it's going to be interesting to see. Man, that's 7:30 kick on a Monday night again. Man, they do not care about the worker in the United States. They do not. So it'll be another 11:30, 12 o'clock finish. I can tell you right now there'll be no post game, unfortunately. Unless it's a doozy of a ball game and I'm so amped up and we go ahead and do it. But I'm going to go ahead and just say the the recap will be the next day. I could go out on somewhat of a limb and say that. But I don't know. I don't know if I really. Anybody else got anything else? Like, I mean, we can sit here, we could talk ball all night long, but I don't want to keep everybody up because I don't know who's got to work tomorrow. I don't know what's going on. Plus, I've been up since 5:30, so. But it was fun. I mean, it's always somber for me at this point in time because there's only one college football game left, and we prop it up for January through July basically, and we start getting ourselves ready for August, for the end of August, and then football starts, and before you know it, it's Halloween, and then before you know it, we're cutting the turkey, and then it's rivalry week, and then we're going to be right back to here we are in 2027. It's unreal how slow the first 8 months go, and then how fast the next four go. Some more questions. I don't believe Miami has faced a pass rush like Indiana's, and I don't think Indiana's faced a pass rush like Miami's. So that one goes 50-50 to me. And they're both true. I agree. Miami hasn't faced a pass rush. I actually no, that's not true. That's not true at all. Miami faced Texas A&M. That ain't true. That's no, no. Miami has faced a pass rush like Indiana's. Texas A&M. Texas A&M. There's a reason why it wasn't just a win. The reason why that game was 10-3. That there's a reason why. But Beck does not blow me away. He didn't at Georgia either, but he stays poised 97% of the time. I think that's a dangerous line at 7.5. This game could be a damn good one, and it could also be a blowout. Who knows? Guess it's why they play the game. Exactly, Ian. 100%. I couldn't have said it any better myself. But yeah, Miami also faced Notre Dame. Miami also faced who else? Let me click on Miami here, bring up their schedule. Should have been able to say Ohio State, but Ohio State didn't want to play defense how I thought they were going to play defense. Good job, Matt Patricia. But I digress. Florida was supposed to have a good defense. They didn't. Yeah, Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Notre Dame and Texas A&M for sure. But Indiana comes about it in a different way. Texas A&M is a lot of blitzing and a lot of matching concepts, where Indiana is going to basically just try to brute force you with their front four. Now they will definitely bring some stunts, and they will bring some twists and stuff like that. But majority of the time, it's their front four. Back to Steven again. FSU was, but they tanked after the Bama game. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we should have known about Bama early on. Florida State showed everybody the game plan, and I think that's exactly what everybody used that did beat them. I think they wound up going back to that game plan that Florida State did to them. There, a lot can be said about Florida State, but I'm not going into that. I mean, Florida State, if you remember, they did have Miami beat, but Miami also did it what they did against Ole Miss, and they wound up winning 28-22. So there is that as well. But I've been on here for about 40 minutes. If anybody else got any more questions, bring those in right now. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Like I said, man, it's bittersweet. We're here at the college. We're at the college football final. Going to be a very exciting football game. I'm very excited for this football game. I think it should be a very good one. Not going to get out of here without making an early prediction. But obviously, not going to hold myself to it. It can be changed, but early read, I will go before that. Ian chimes in again. Excited for the offensive playmakers, but this game is going to be a fun one in the trenches on both sides. Yep, exactly. That's, again, couldn't have said it any better. You guys have been great tonight. But before I get out of here, my prediction for score and winner. I'm going to go, let's see. I'll go Indiana 31, Miami 24. I'll go Indiana 31, Miami 24, and Indiana caps off the 16-0 season, first time in college football history, and let the debates begin. Are they the greatest of all time at that point? Indiana by 14? Yeah. Last question. If you had made that bet at plus 7,000 in an IU Natty, do you hedge it or let it ride right now? Oh, I'd let that damn thing ride right now. Oh, I'm not breaking that thing up at all. The only thing I might do is I mean, I might take the Miami, but I mean, it wouldn't be that's the thing. Like, I don't, my unit sizes aren't big enough to make such a huge dent. So there's really no benefit for me to hedge, because I just, like I said, my unit sizes are so small. But I might go. That the 7.5 is the most intriguing thing for me. It truly is, because I don't. Say it's 31-24, like I just said. Miami wins. You get paid. So Indiana can win this game. They can win by a touchdown, and you still cover if you take Miami. Like, right now, before this line moves, you're almost, unless you think Miami, like Larry here, 27-13, then you may as well go money line right there. You may as well just go money line on that. But I don't know. That's why Vegas wins majority of the time. Like, money line for Indiana is -325. Money line for Miami is +260. And this line has been posted now for about 40 minutes and it hasn't moved. That's intriguing to me too. So once all the more analytics and once more everything else comes out, obviously, probably, let's see. No, I'll do it Monday. I'll do it Monday the 19th, probably around 4:30-ish, 5-ish is when I'll probably do that video. I may do one next week because there are some topics I want to talk about. College football, the little preview of it. I used it on that local radio show that I was referencing earlier today. I used this on there. Right now, college football is like the Titanic. It just hit the iceberg. The people in the upper decks have no idea what happened. But the people in the lower decks and underneath, they know exactly what happened because the water's starting to rush in. College football is the boat, and it's sinking. It looks wonderful right now because the ratings are very good, and highest ratings that they've ever seen, and attendance, quote unquote, is okay. But yet I read other things where the attendance isn't that great, especially at these bowl games and stuff like that. Indiana right now isn't a team to really base this on because this is the first time Indiana's done something like this. So the fans are going to flock to it. You can't bank on that. Miami, again, can't bank on that. This is the first time since the early 2000s that they've done something like this. And you're not going to be able to bank the TV ratings or the ticket sales at the national championship on what I'm talking about either, because I'm going to look like a fool. The attendance is going to be high. The TV ratings are going to be high. Why? Miami, Indiana. And it's two new teams, and and that's part of what's playing into this season. The problem of the matter is there's a sinking ship, and the sinking ship is the fact of we have built an entire model that is on the donors' backs. And that's not tax refundable. You can't sit here with this system and keep going back to these donors for 30, 40, $50 million a pop and actually think that this thing is going to be able to sustain itself. It's mathematically impossible. Don't believe me? Look at our country. It's mathematically impossible. Let alone all the smaller schools that can barely field any other teams. I wonder why the volume went out. Is the bunny back? Is the volume back? Let me know. Are we back, Ian? Are we back? No, we got some that can hear it. We got others that don't. That's interesting. But anyhow, let me get back to this. Mark Cuban just tossed a ton, but that's my point. That's my exact point. Mark Cuban, guys like Mark Cuban, Stephen Ross for Michigan, the big donors for Ohio State. I mean, look at what was going on with Ohio State just today. Bo Jackson was trying to get more money from Ohio State than what Ohio State was paying to Junkins and Henderson combined. And he actually wound up winning. I don't think the numbers have been released yet, but what did he come back for if he didn't get 1.5 or higher? It's not sustainable. And what I was getting at before, you have the smaller schools, aka the MAC, the SWAC, where the conferences that like Appalachian State and the WAC out west and all the Sun Belt and all of those teams, they're having a trouble fielding the football teams. They're having trouble fielding the other teams, the baseball teams, the softball teams, and stuff like that. They're getting crushed. Not only are they getting crushed financially, they're getting crushed with the roster because every big school keeps coming down and raiding their roster in the transfer portal. You have guys in the transfer portal literally every year for the last 4 years. I can't tell you why the NCAA didn't grant Chambliss another year of eligibility. I don't know why. I've read the reports. It doesn't make sense to me. If I'm Chambliss, I'm suing the NCAA. This is the thing. We are one huge lawsuit away from a player and then turning into multiple players where this thing completely collapses. These aren't hypotheticals. These are going to happen. Where does the money go when the team tanks? We are turning NCAA football into NCAA basketball. Yep. And just wait till it goes to a 48-team playoff. They're already talking about, I just told you about the success of the 12-team playoff. They're already talking about going to 16 next year. There's serious talk about going to 16 next year. You can't keep drawing this money and just think that this is going to work, let alone starting on Monday, there were 5,000 kids in the transfer portal. You had enough kids in the transfer portal. Think about this. On Monday at noon, you could have just simultaneously combusted every roster in the SEC and the Big Ten and 3 other schools throughout the country that you want to talk about. You could have taken every kid off of those rosters and filled them with every kid that's in the transfer portal. Think about that for a minute. That's how ridiculous this is. Yes, we keep reading about how kids keep signing and blah, 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 blah. Well, have you noticed what else we keep seeing too? More kids entering the portal. More kids entering the portal. Ole Miss lost last night. Kids from them are entering the portal. Miami, once they win or lose against Indiana, their kids will enter the portal. Indiana beat Oregon. Their kids are going to be entering the portal. We have kids sitting in the portal at the end when the portal closes every single year, and they don't get picked up anywhere. They said there will be an appeal. Do you think he wins the appeal? Who are we talking about? Oh, Chambliss. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see how he filed the appeal. If he filed the appeal with an actual injury, then yes, I do think he'll win the appeal. If he shows that there was an injury where he lost a season, then yes. If he doesn't have that, then no, he won't. How do you turn Chambliss away when he just got beat by a quarterback who's in his 7th year? That's my exact point. That is literally my point. I have no idea. I don't understand how we're granting some guys another year of eligibility, but we're not granting another kid of eligibility. And let me just real quick before I get off here, because I've already went about 15 minutes longer than I wanted to. That's exactly where I was going, Steve. That's exactly where I was going. We avoided an entire catastrophe with the Damon Williams situation. And here's my read on that situation. I think either the NCAA, the Big Ten, or both went to Damon Williams and his representative and said, "You're going back to Washington. We're not doing this. You're going back to Washington." That's also why I believe his agent fired him, because Damon wanted to go back. Once he was basically told to go back, he wanted to go back. And I think the agent was basically saying, "No, we can fight this and we can win." Everybody keeps hearing, then this is why. Has anybody seen these contracts that they keep talking about? Oh, he signed his contract. Oh, he signed that contract. Has anybody seen one? I don't think they're real. If anybody wants to go challenge any of these things, this thing will explode in their face before anybody even realizes it. And we avoided a catastrophe this week with Damon just agreeing to go back to Washington. If he fought this, this would have been ugly. This is 2 years in a row now. There was a kid who signed with Wisconsin last year, then went to Miami, and Wisconsin let it go. This has happened 2 years in a row now to the Big Ten. The difference is Sankey and the Big Ten, and maybe even the NCAA too, stepped in and said, "No, Williams, you're going back. That's not happening again. And we're not going to do the lawsuit. We're not going to do all of that. Just go back and do all that thing." And yeah. If you have eligibility, I don't care. If you bowl and you have eligibility, go to a school that has a bowling team and go make some NIL. If you got any eligibility left at all, I don't understand why you wouldn't go do it. But so this is 2 years in a row now that we've been dealing with this. All it's going to take is one player to sit there and say, "Nah, I'm not going to listen to you. If you sue me, well, then fine. We'll fight it in court." And then the whole thing will come down. And all the NCAA has to do is go get an antitrust, and this whole thing will be over with. But they don't want to do it because they keep reaping the benefits of the money right now. And there's not an adult in the room to make the adult decisions to sit there and say what's the best for the game, what's the best for the fans, and how are we going to move this forward. Not how much money am I going to get out of this. That's why we're going to go to 16. That's why they're not even going to make the right decision on the 16, like I said in a couple videos ago. But like I said, I'm probably going to do a video probably later on next week about this whole subject because there's so many more avenues. There's so many more directions to go with this. I could sit here and talk about this for hours. Because again, I didn't even get to the softball and the baseball side of this, where that's where my background is. I got recruited for baseball. I've been a part of recruiting for softball by being a coach of it and being a coach of baseball as well. I see that. And you already heard Calipari talk about it in his press conference last week. We already have basketball coaches who aren't recruiting high school kids. This has been going on for multiple years now in baseball and softball. I don't know about soccer. I don't know about lacrosse. I don't know about golf. I don't know about tennis and all of those other sports. But I'm telling you, as God is my witness, that's already been happening in baseball. It's already been happening in softball. If it's now starting to reach basketball and football, this thing's closer to crashing than I thought it was. You can't sustain the model where literally we're not going to be recruiting kids out of high school anymore. You can't sustain it. But it's probably the best place to leave it right here. Anybody got any more questions? I'll open it up real quick. NFL playoff system has worked great for years. Why do we change it every year in college football? Because this isn't the NFL. Quite easy. That's the easiest on that. Because we want to make things quote unquote fair, and we want to make sure that the little guy has his share, and we want to make sure that we want to make sure that we care about the money more than the actual reason we were going to college to begin with. Our human condition has overtaken what the actual importance of going to college was for. Is that making sense? We're not doing NIL for the reasons they said we were doing NIL. The transfer portal is not what the transfer portal was said it was supposed to be. That's why. Eventually, college kids run out of eligibility. Have a good night, Shaw. Yep, you too, buddy. Got to get to the high school kids. Yeah, I mean, the high school kids are the foundation of the sports. The high school kids are what makes this run. And if you start cutting the knees out from that, all the problems will continue leading from there. Like, that's what I mean. There's so many layers to this that people don't want to talk about. Human greed. Just we've lost our complete and utter understanding of what actually truly is important. And I mean, just look at the fact that we're talking tonight about a game between Oregon and Indiana, and it was a conference game. Because in this generation, the name on the back means more than the name on the front. Amen. That'll preach. That'll preach. There's reasons why I don't coach Pee Wee football anymore. And a lot of those same reasons are the reasons why I couldn't get hired on to do junior high or high school. But like I said, I've now been on here for over an hour. Enjoyed it. Anybody got any other questions before I get off of here? And if we don't, then I will definitely see you on the flip side. Be nice to somebody and take care. And until next time, as always, peace.